Once civilization lost its connection to ancestral memory and ancestors, we began taking on the ideology of those who put themselves in charge. This began a long, long time ago. The most current are the roots in New Thought movement to the I Am movement. These are the grifters and dark New Age prophets who prophesy and teach laws of attraction and other spiritual laws in a manner which can be considered pseudoscience or pseudo philosophy. The targets of this group that I am speaking on today, which is the I Am movement, is it targets the vulnerable population, which are the sick, those with health issues. It targets the poor, those with financial problems, and the generally lost, those who just are meandering through life and may not know what to do, where to go, and just feel a sense of lack of purpose, but something is calling. And the profits that are generated from these movements are in the materials, the books, the courses, the classes, their readings from tarot or other sorts of materials that they can generate. And this is not a problem if you take it up as a hobby and you like to use singing bowls, because those things have resonance with our body. It's true. Using incense as well, crystals, and even if you have a tarot deck, that's on you. That's your choice. So it's not these individual items. It's the manner of use and how these new age spiritual leaders are rising into gurus without any kind of regulation for the purpose of profits. And what does it do? What is the problem? The problem is that it is a confusion to the mind and body, soul. It is a distraction for us. A lot of us have paths that we want to walk, and we get entangled in some of these major leaders, these major spiritual so-called leaders and self-help gurus. We're taught about manifestation, and we are taught that we don't have to do any other work, but that's not true. The mind and body is part of the quantum field, but we do still need to do something in the physical. And so the purpose of this video is to explore the roots of the I Am and the players who are mostly well known but may not be as understood. And those who are not mentioned, you can look up yourself. And this video is set for you to figure it out on your own. This is just a guiding point. So I'm going to list a few names that you can research on your own in your own time as well. Phineas Packhurst Quimby, Helen Blavatsky, Mary Baker Eddy, Prentice Muford, H. Emil Carey, Charles F. Hamill. There is Wallace D. Wattles, Napoleon Hill, David Schirmer, Schirmer of Australia, James Arthur Ray, and Kathy Goodman. The reason I list these names is because these are specific people you can look up. Oh, let me add Rhonda Byrne, Bob Proctor. Okay. And I wanted to list these names. I could even list Abraham Hicks. Too bad I have to list her too. But because, she's, never mind. The reason I'm listing these names is that if we look into their stories and we look into the legal and the medical claims that they've made and what failures they've had and what's true and what's not true, we can find that there's a certain amount of grifting involved in mostly all of these names, or they generally misled some of them. Okay. And again, this is for a jumpstart for your own research. I cannot tell you what to think, but I do want to point you in a direction where you can illuminate yourself. This video may sicken you to the core, but it must be stated and it must be shared, because then people are making a more educated, more well-informed decision about who they believe they're following and the origins of these individuals. And so when we take a look at the I Am movement, we need to also consider the origins of the Ascended Masters. The origins, of the Ascended Masters is stated to be in 1924, when author Bear T. Spalding wrote a series of books, which I do have, called Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. Later on, Godfrey Ray King, or better known as Guy Ballard, in the books Unveiled Mysteries, also furthered the inclusive list of the many ascended masters who are said to be the reincarnate, who are said to be them in reincarnated states. Basically, they're saying they are the ascended masters who took form again. Some of these names who have grown very loving and endearing to many people: Kuan Yin, Saint Germain, Jesus, Mother Mary, Thoth Isis, Mary Magdalene, Hilarion, Serapis Bey, Sanat Kumara, and the Buddha, etc. Now, some of these individuals or entities have other branching histories which may be before the designation of them as ascended masters. But in order to know that, that's a longer, deeper dive into history back before the 1700s, which is not something I'm contemplating at this particular moment. But I do want you to know the definition of an ascended master, which is considered to be a soul who has once lived on earth as a human and decided to ascend after their death to support us right now. And so what I'm saying is, this is a creation of in the minds of men. This was a creation for a purpose, which is many, which is has several different reasons for its creation, many vectors pointing to what's current today happening in the political and religious arena, going back to the Great Depression, when people were desperate in wanting to find a reason for why they were poor, wanting to find a reason for how they could improve their lives. And they were being pointed to a general great I Am as a tool to not blame maybe a political or socioeconomic condition or state of looming oligarchy, but instead to say, well, maybe you need to manifest better, or maybe it's something about you that's wrong, right? Okay. And so officially, the I Am movement was incorporated in 1934. This is following Ballard's supposed encounter with Saint Germain, which is similar to the Moses story and how he met I Am that I Am, or Yahweh. So Guy Ballard and his wife Edna had a son, Donald Ballard, and they developed this movement. It's a movement with theosophical teachings, which is also branched into many as various others. You may have heard of a few in Mount Shasta, which I'll touch on later. But the height of the I Am movement was between 1935 and 1938. These individuals were also brought up on federal fraud charges for lack of a better word, for defrauding the public with their materials. They lost that case and they did get convicted of defraudment, because it was stated that they had made false allegations that they was helping people when it was really just taking their money. But then they fought that, and they went back to court to say no, they wanted to be tried on their religious convictions, calling the I Am movement a religion. And so that all ties back together with what is the I Am. And I don't believe that everyone who's using the statement I am and trying to manifest or calling on their I am is aware of its roots and is aware of why they even feel like it's something for them to seek out. And so then that tells me that most people are actually looking into themselves as the power, which is a great thing. But it also tells me that they need to know that if they're calling upon these ascended masters, they may be calling upon an imaginary artificial construct which was created in the minds of men who were seeking to control a populace. Okay. And that was a lot. So let me take a breath. Okay. I'm going to take a breath and we'll pick up on my next part 2. The most notable members of the Ascended Masters group, which falls under the umbrella of the I Am movement, which is now considered a cult and has been considered a cult for almost 100 years, is Jesus, the Ascended Master Jesus. I'll keep it there. And also Saint Germain. Saint Germain also has a foundation, which I believe is in New Zealand. And many of these New Age communities are offshoots or branches of the New Age I Am movement. They're considered religious groups with theosophical and esoteric roots and are recognized by the Great White Brotherhood and the Theosophical Society. These are also the Theosophical Society, which maybe you may know with the head of Helen P. Blavatsky. You might know of that. And you may also know of the tie of the Great White Brotherhood with the OTO and the Golden Dawn. And so when we think about these individuals, we want to remember, we want to look at the affiliations, we want to look at the links, because it's going to point to how it's current and very important for us now not to be hoodwinked into following something that's projected to create an entire new way of life or a new golden age with a new type of religion that will be a global religion. Okay. Other worldwide groups which are in affiliation with, which had over like 1 million followers in 1940s, which began as at the end of the I Am movement when Ballard died, was the uprising and picking up of the mantle by the Bridge to Freedom and the Summit Lighthouse. There's also a group called the Church Universal and Triumphant. These are all places for you to look and to research, because I feel it's very important for me to present information, but also for you to leave it open-ended and balanced so that you can do your own research and you can see how the names match up and to look into the FBI files yourself. I'm going to do a little bit more of digging here just to point you in the direction for your own discovery, because if nobody has ever pointed out these things to you, how would you ever know? And that's the best and most balanced approach I can have and take to this conscious journalistic discussion about the I Am. So let's take a breath. Okay. The transition. According to the Theosophical Society, and a lot of the people who know of the Ascended Masters, such as the Ascended Master teachings and what's her name, Alice Bailey, and other people who've written about them, that there's going to be a handover between Jesus, who is here, who is said to be here in assistance to the New Agers or to humanity, over to Saint Germain. It is said that Saint Germain is the manager or the executive council of the Christ. He's in the lead, and that Master Jesus or the Christ Jesus they're two separate beings, and that Master Jesus is handing over the role of Savior to Saint Germain. And this is why Jesus will not make an appearance on this earth again. It is as if it's a second coming of Jesus, but in the hands or in the personification of Saint Germain, because now Saint Germain would be the new Savior for humanity. To drive home the point of what the Ascended Masters mean and how it is considered a cult and how it is considered adult fantasy, I'll read directly from one of the branches of the I Am movement, which has been published by Summit Publications, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, Inner Perspectives. And this is the Summit Lighthouse Post, okay? This is what the question was. What do Jesus and Saint Germain have in common? This was her comments. I see these great ones as sons of God. We are all sons and daughters, but these sons have mastered the challenge of life on earth. They have mastered the self mastered time, space, and returned to the inner reality which is called God. Jesus demonstrated the nature of this mastery according to the way of the Piscean conqueror and return to what we call the white fire core of being in the ritual of the ascension at the conclusion of his life. The process of the ascension is actually an acceleration of consciousness. It is an acceleration of the vibration and frequency of the very atoms, cells, electrons that compose our being. Jesus is the archetype of those who have reunited with that light of Christ, with that light of the Christ. He was not the exception but the rule. He was the example. What one son of God can do, every son or daughter of God can do. This is the message of Jesus for the Piscean age, and it is also the message of Saint Germain for the Aquarian age. Saint Germain has figured on earth in many incarnations. At the time of Jesus, he was embodied as Joseph, the protector of Mary and Jesus. We know that many Catholics who have prayed to Saint Germain to Prince Joseph, who have prayed to Saint Joseph have received answers in wonderful and miraculous ways. Prior to his incarnation as Joseph, Saint Germain was embodied as the prophet Samuel. He later embodied as Francis Bacon. We see then in the evolution of this soul, one who was prophet as Samuel, one who was the archetype of father as Joseph, and one who was a great author of statesmanship as Francis Bacon. Sidebar: if you know anything about Francis Bacon or Samuel, you will then get a very clear picture of why we need to be aware of affiliations, because then you can see what is gleaned as quote unquote good. Okay? To finish, the acceleration of his consciousness and his return to the white fire core in the ascension took place in 1684 following his life as Francis Bacon. Okay. Subsequently to that, like I said, I'm not going to go further back than the 1700s, okay? But here is a little glimpse that it goes very deep, you guys. Subsequently to that, he was very present and very noticed in the courts of Europe as Le Comte, Comte de Saint Germain. I'm butchering that name. I'm so sorry. The Wonder Man of Europe. Isabel Cooper Oakley wrote a book about him entitled The Comte de Saint Germain. The Count warned kings and queens of coming calamities. He predicted the French Revolution and attempted to stay the hand of the guillotine. Saint Germain's desire was to form the United States of Europe. Failing at this, he turned his attention to the United States of America, sponsoring the Constitution and a way of life for people who would come from every nation to pursue the flame of freedom, the flame of the Aquarian age. Saint Germain figures in our folklore as Uncle Sam, okay, a name that harks back to his embodiment as the prophet Samuel. So the prophet Samuel in the person of Saint Germain is the one who gives the American people their tremendous zest for freedom. Come on, you guys. Their creative genius and sense of alchemy. Their impetus for constant self-evaluation and transformation. Above all, Saint Germain sponsors science, technology, and the great inventions that have come forth in America for all peoples. Saint Germain is the master of the Aquarian age and the one who will teach us to find the Christ as the real self in this 2,000-year cycle. Today, I have given you just a glimpse of this cosmic being. Okay, so if you didn't hear what I'm saying by reading that to you, I am not saying that this person is wrong or right. What I'm saying is we need to use our intuition. We need to use and apply a little bit of common sense, because if we realize what is being said here, then we can realize what is being extracted. And what is being presented is that everything that's supposed to be progressive and intelligent and scientific and our fire within us, we owe it to some outside being. We owe it first to somebody named Master Jesus, now Saint Germain, who's taking over the role in the new golden age, the new era, which is pending, which is on its way. Okay. And so we need to be really aware again of the origins of these things. And perhaps I do need to go further back than 1700s. We should just stay informed and stay alert and aware to our real self and not reach outside so much. What I have to say next is this list is not all comprehensive. It does not include everybody involved in perpetuating this, what appears to be adult fantasy to siphon your power, but it is just a few names to start with. And because there are several theosophists and practitioners of all sorts of esoteric traditions, and even those we may see on certain circuits, current day and modern day, and those of ancient times, because this is culminating in a video which will explain how it matters presently and what we could do about it. But some of the names are C.W. Ledbetter. And you might notice, before I start, you might notice there's many of them who are considered Freemasons, right? And I said that in a way to Mans of Freedom. I'll just put it that way. But C.W. Ledbetter, okay? There is David Christopher Lewis. There is Edgar Casey, and he's going to be a beloved one for you. I'm sure many people don't know, but he's one. Guy and Edna Ballard. Of course, I've already mentioned them. Peter Mount Shasta. Okay, there's Alice Bailey. And there's, like I said, a bunch more that I would mention at another time. But I want you to see what those links are and see if any of it makes sense to you. Because ultimately, what we want to do is we want to have a clear, direct path to sovereign beings. Our sovereignty doesn't depend on any dogma, any religion, any movement, any agenda, any labels. We don't have to call ourselves spiritualist consciousness. We don't have to call ourselves anything. And we don't have to follow certain trends. We don't have to do any of these things that we're being told to do. And even if everything I'm saying is just a misunderstanding, wouldn't you want to I hear you. Wouldn't you want to be aware? Just aware so that you can follow the pieces as they move. And so that's all this is for. This is for you to do your own research and for you to follow your heart and for you to consider that when you say, I'm just going to focus on my I am, and I'm going to leave it all up to my I am. And when people say to focus on your I am presence, where does that energy go? Does it improve your life? Does it help you any? Does it? Be honest with yourself. We're almost there. And just to conclude on an etymology standpoint of I am, Yahweh, why we don't want to go there and worship something outside ourselves, I want to just quickly read a passage that may help to identify some of what I'm talking about. It says in the Bible, Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts, and his captain, the archangel or archon Michael, is portrayed as a commander of a Navy unit, a complex hierarchical modeled collectively upon a military structure, a type of itinerant. The Elohim gods and their emissaries are thought to intervene in human history and are similar to archonic principalities or fallen angels, which live in the sky and govern over mankind. It says, documented in Judaic scriptures, the Elokeh, a living God, and their angels preside over the earth, insinuating themselves into human affairs. Okay, and I'm not going to go to the rest of that quote. I'm just going to go to the next part, which I have outlined to share, is the related morphology of the words. Okay, Yahweh figured as an Elokeh. Yahweh Elohim becomes Elokeh, a high creature or living God, a lesser God. Kaya, a serpent. A Kaya or an animal. A Kayan, an entity. A Haya, to be. Yahweh, I am, which equals all to a living creature, serpent, or lesser God, basically. One last thing to consider is, how does this I am Yahweh El Shaddai being work with the jinn? What is the jinn? And how does that affect us in technology sake? And how does that tie into the AI industries and AGI? A quick definition of the jinn are neither good nor evil, as they can make moral choices. Jinn can take on animate and inanimate forms and may possess humans and influence their actions. They are able to integrate their technology and create new technology. Jinn have also a life in other kinds of technologies in other planets. So this is something for us to consider. Yeah.